Someone called me from a number I didn't recognize. Who could it be? I wondered aloud as I picked up the phone and said, "Hello." The voice on the other end responded, "It's me, Kevin, your son. Look, I get that you and Dad aren't together anymore, but you need to start acting like a mom. I'm in high school now, and I can't keep dealing with your problems forever, okay?" Confused, I asked, "What do you mean? Why are you calling me?" Kevin's tone turned sharp. "I'm telling you, you need to pay my child support and school fees, and do it soon. It's because of what you did, cheating and all, and now you're trying to get money from Dad. You're out of your mind." His words made me angry. "Kevin, who is this? I never had any children." "What? Are you kidding me? Are you in denial?" He shot back. "Stop playing games." Kevin must think I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like I said before, Kevin isn't my biological son. About 14 years ago, I was married to my ex-husband for about 3 years. During that time, our relationship didn't change much, and I thought we got along pretty well. We often went out together on our days off. My ex-husband had a busy job that required him to travel for work about half of the month. I knew about this from the beginning, so I wasn't too worried about it. The only thing that bothered me was the topic of children. Before we got married, I really wanted to have kids soon. We both had our own plans and priorities though. Even though I thought having kids was the right thing for us, I didn't want to push him if he wasn't ready. So I was patient and didn't rush him into anything. After 3 years of marriage, my ex-husband hadn't mentioned having children, which started to bother me. Finally, I brought it up one day. "What do you think about starting a family now? 3 years have passed, and waiting longer could make it harder for us to have kids." "Yeah, but work is really hectic right now." "When will it not be hectic?" "Seriously? You've been saying that forever, and we're still in the same place." "I understand work is busy, but if you keep using that excuse, it makes me wonder if there's more going on than just work." "What do you mean by that?" "I haven't done anything wrong," I said, feeling confused. The conversation felt strange. I didn't suspect my ex-husband of cheating, but I was concerned that things might start to seem suspicious. However, his reaction made me think otherwise. He's keeping something from me? I thought to myself. With that in mind, I decided to investigate. As I looked into his words, actions, and his behavior when I questioned him, I discovered the truth about what he was really doing on his business trips. It wasn't just cheating, it was much worse. My husband was living a double life. Half the month he was with me, and the other half he was with another family. The most shocking discovery was that this other family included a child. That child turned out to be Kevin. Did you just call me? Kevin was only about 2 years old then, too young to fully grasp what was happening. It was a situation with mixed feelings, fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. Knowing someone would get hurt, I decided to talk to the other woman later. She seemed to have heard about me from my ex-husband, nodding slightly when she saw me. From our first meeting, she didn't come off as particularly friendly. Amidst the tension, we quickly got to the point. I brought up everything that troubled me, whether it was acceptable for my ex-husband to lead a double life, and whose child Kevin really was. Without any hint of regret, she calmly answered, "Carly," confidently stating she was Kevin's mother. It seemed my ex-husband had kept this a secret from me, but she had no qualms about it. I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the situation. Finally, I asked her what her plans were moving forward. "I'm not planning to change anything in my life now. I'm fine with how things are," she replied. "Besides, I don't think he's interested in having more children." "Why do you say that?" When I told him I was pregnant with Kevin, he didn't seem happy. He said it would have been better if the timing had been different. So my pregnancy was more of an accident. Otherwise, I don't think he would have wanted a child. But he told me he loved kids. "Doesn't that mean he wanted a child with you?" She smiled faintly and said, "Isn't that strange? If that were true, why did I, who wasn't keen on having a child, end up giving birth, while you, who wanted a child, didn't even conceive? Can he truly say he loves children?" "Well, I'm sure he said he loved kids, but maybe it was just something he said to impress you. Perhaps he used it as an excuse to get close to you." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't find the words. It felt like she had hit upon something true, and it made me question whether my ex-husband had been sincere about wanting children despite his actions saying otherwise. In the end, I started to believe the other woman was right. I felt powerless, like the best I could do was seek compensation. She seemed calm about it, which only made me feel worse. A few days later, I filled out divorce papers and handed them to my husband, telling him I would also be seeking compensation. He probably heard about it from the other woman. My husband accepted everything without questioning me. What was the point of it all? Why did this man even marry me? There was only one thing I couldn't stop wondering about. On the day I packed up and left, I asked my ex-husband, "Why did you marry me? I just don't understand." "I'm not sure either. I often wonder why we got married in the first place. If we didn't even know, maybe we shouldn't have." "Yeah, maybe. If we hadn't, you wouldn't have to deal with a divorce now." "But hey, you married me because you liked me, right? We both made a mistake. Let's move on to a better life now." Thank you for everything. Same to you. I'll pray that I don't choose someone like you in my next life, I said, and then we got divorced. I became single again, changed jobs, and moved to a different state, aiming for a fresh start. It was a valuable experience for me to approach everything with a new mindset. My ex-husband occasionally contacted me for paperwork, but we never discussed our current lives. Maybe he wasn't interested. He had his own life, and I had mine. About 10 years passed without us keeping in touch. Then unexpectedly, I received a call from Kevin. I was curious about the reason, but it turned out he was asking for child support and school fees. Kevin is the child born from my ex-husband's affair. Naturally, I have no legal obligation to pay, but he wouldn't accept that. Don't you feel ashamed as a mother? If that's the case, then don't have any children, he kept repeating. It was frustrating to hear the same thing over and over. I didn't want to escalate things, so I waited for him to calm down. Finally, after a few minutes, I managed to speak up. Can I say something? There are a few things I need to clarify. How did you get my number? It's obvious. I got it from Dad. Our family hasn't been doing well lately, and things seem strange. Eventually, we couldn't afford tuition and other expenses. Because of that, I had to start working part-time. Dad said it was all your fault. That's when I started hearing different things about you, Mom, that you cheated on Dad and left without fulfilling your promises to pay. Until then, I hadn't asked much about the divorce, but now it all made sense. It's all your fault, he concluded. I see. I finally understood why he was so angry. If what he said was true, any kid would be upset. But my ex-husband had lied to Kevin, and unbelievably, he had turned Kevin against me. Hearing this made me furious. It's a hassle for my ex-husband to reappear in my life now that we're divorced. However, it's also heartbreaking to see Kevin being misled like this. From my point of view, he's a stranger, but I couldn't just ignore the situation and walk away, saying it's not my problem. After remarrying and having children with my current husband, I felt a responsibility as a parent to do the right thing. Kevin, now 16, seemed old enough to hear the truth. Kevin, everything I'm about to tell you is the truth. If you need proof, like a DNA test, I can arrange it. Can you listen to me for now? I asked. Yeah, Kevin replied hesitantly. As I revealed each detail, he grew increasingly agitated. If what you're saying is true, why did Dad have me call you earlier? Kevin asked, confused. Kevin, you mentioned you're working part-time. What are you doing with the money? I inquired. Saving it for me. Our family's been struggling financially lately, and I wanted to help out with debts. High school isn't mandatory anymore, so I don't need much, he explained earnestly. You're such a responsible kid. But have you ever wondered why, with that money, you can't cover your tuition and expenses? Well, sometimes my phone bill payment is late. I think Dad might be short on money. Is he working right now? He's working. He goes to the office regularly. I see. I have a bad feeling about this. Could it be that my ex-husband is using Kevin's money? With that suspicion in mind, I decided to look into my ex-husband's activities once more. Kevin, can you give me about 3 weeks? Haha, sure, that's fine. And please don't tell Dad about what we talked about on the phone, okay? Okay, I won't. So I decided to investigate my ex-husband further. I hired a private investigator and waited anxiously for the results. Some might say I'm going too far, but everything I do is for Kevin's sake. I wouldn't go to such lengths for anyone else. Even if people think I'm crazy, I don't care. Would I abandon a child who looks like he's on the verge of collapsing right in front of me? Absolutely not. I refuse to become that kind of person. Above all, I felt a deep anger towards my ex-husband for deceiving Kevin. Filled with this anger, I waited for the private investigator's report for 3 weeks. When the results finally arrived, I was shocked and furious. It turned out my ex-husband wasn't currently employed full-time. He was working as a temporary worker and had recently been laid off. Instead of actively seeking new opportunities, he was spending his time idly drinking or playing cards. Kevin believed his dad was working because he often dressed in a suit, but the truth was he was unemployed and not actively searching for a job. What angered me most about my ex-husband was how quickly he acted remorseful in front of Kevin. Seeing his dad like that, Kevin felt sorry and willingly handed over all his part-time job earnings. Little did Kevin know, his money was being squandered on gambling and drinking by his father. This situation couldn't be ignored. First and foremost, I needed to take action to help Kevin. With that in mind, I called my ex-mother-in-law, relieved that I hadn't deleted her number from my phone book. Hello. Oh, Ava. It's been a while. How have you been? Long time no see. What's on your mind? Is everything all right? I explained the current situation to my mother-in-law. During my marriage, she and her sister-in-law had been at odds with me. After the divorce, we hadn't kept in touch. However, it seemed she had heard about my divorce and understood that I had moved on with my life, so she wasn't upset at all. I see. I'm sorry I didn't mention it earlier. I thought it would be better coming from him, but he was cheating, wasn't he? My mother-in-law's voice took on a somber tone. As I shared all the details, she let out an angry exclamation over the phone. I understand now. It all makes sense. I wasn't informed about the birth because he had a child with someone else. He brought Kevin to see me, but I was told not to contact you because you needed space after giving birth. Some people go through mental instability or even illness during that time, so I respected your privacy. When I found out about the divorce, I felt sorry, but I didn't know how to reach out to you. Is that right? Now Kevin visits occasionally, and it brings me joy. Regardless of how he came into this world, he's not to blame. I want to support him and be there for him in the future. You've always been understanding. I'm actually relieved to hear you say that. I called because I wanted to ask you something about Kevin. Could you and your husband help raise Kevin together? Of course. Kevin worked so hard to earn money from his part-time job, only for it to be wasted on gambling. I think it's crucial to have a serious talk with him about that. I trust you to handle it, but I believe Kevin is sacrificing his future to support his father. Please let him live freely with you and his grandfather. My mother-in-law assured me that she would take care of Kevin, and thus his immediate situation was resolved. Now it was time to confront my ex-husband. I decided to contact him and arrange a meeting. I was furious at him for deceiving me. When I arrived at the cafe at the agreed-upon time and saw my ex-husband, he looked noticeably worn out. It's unusual for you to reach out to me, and wow, you look older. Anyway, what about Kevin? So you already know. Let's get straight to the point. Why did you have Kevin call me? What were you trying to achieve? I was desperate. Money's been tight lately. I lost my job due to a fraud accusation, and Kevin's mother disappeared out of nowhere. It feels like everything's slipping away from me, but my mom and Kevin still think I'm employed. It's easy to fool them as long as I act remorseful. Kevin is your son, right? Doesn't it make you feel something? He's such a dutiful son, giving me money. You won't find a more devoted son than him. I understand now. I feel relieved hearing you say these things openly. Suddenly, 3 people stood up from a nearby table and approached us. Huh? What's happening? You're truly despicable. We overheard everything just now. Even after all this time, your character hasn't changed. It's over for you. It was my mother-in-law, my aunt-in-law, and then Kevin. To convince everyone, they needed to see his true nature with their own eyes. My ex-husband started to visibly flounder, unable to find the right words. As everyone chastised him, he kept glancing at me, seemingly seeking help. But even if you make that face, it won't change anything. You need to accept responsibility for everything you've done and recognize how disgraceful your actions have been. And with that, the incident came to a close. Since then, my ex-husband faced criticism from my mother-in-law, aunt-in-law, and father-in-law. He was pushed to find work and eventually secured a job at a construction site through my father-in-law's connections. My father-in-law insisted it was to straighten him out. Moreover, he arranged for child support to be deducted directly from his wages. This ensured that Kevin's tuition and other school expenses were covered. Kevin has since been living with his grandmother. While I remain deeply disappointed in my ex-husband, he has apparently shown kindness to my mother-in-law and father-in-law. Kevin continues to be a kind-hearted child through it all. I'm still uncertain if my actions were entirely justified, but there's no denying things have improved. My greatest wish is for Kevin to find happiness. As my mother-in-law wisely said, a child born into this world bears no guilt.